My name is Gary Secor. I'm a plant pathologist. Work for the Agriculture Experiment Station, North Dakota State University, which is just south of here in Fargo. A 6-hour drive from Brandon down to Fargo. And that's when the roads are good. I work on 2 crops, basically. Potatoes. Been working on potatoes for a little over 40 years, 35 of them at North Dakota State University. Worked on potatoes in Montana before that, and that's where I'm from originally, is Montana. And I also work on sugar beets. So I've been working on sugar beets about the last 15 years. So it's 2 interesting crops to work on, both of them, of course, under the ground. And I work on disease management, and I work closely with the potato breeder on development of varieties, and especially varieties with resistance. I really like variety development. I think that's fun. And I've been the acting interim temporary breeder on a couple of occasions when we've tried to hire a new breeder. So basically what I talked about was the basics of getting good seed, handling good seed, maximizing the potential for good potato seed. Just the basics of that, because these guys all need that educational kinds of thing. And then I talked about ifs and thens, that if you have this situation, then how would you use the seed treatment? And if you had this situation, how would you use it? And then I followed up basically with best management practices for using liquid seed treatments. And the impetus for this presentation was the fact that liquid seed treatments are new to Canada. In the past, liquid seed or dust seed treatments have been used for disease control. And there's some worker safety issues with using dust seed treatments, worker exposure to dusts and contamination and not having to wear protective gear and this kind of thing. So with the advent of liquid seed treatment, you put on ultra low volumes, you don't have the dust, so there's better worker safety. And because they're new in Canada, and we've been using them in the US for several years, they just simply asked me to talk about what we do with liquid seed treatments in the US. If you're going to maximize the potential of your seed and you're going to grow a very healthy crop with good quality, you need to treat it properly, because potatoes are basically living organisms. So you need to treat them like eggs rather than potatoes, or rocks, if you will. So my main message was how to use liquid seed treatments to prevent decay, because you're adding water to an already wet potato that might go in wet soils. So best management practices to avoid wet conditions, and how to apply these chemicals in ultra low volumes to prevent excess moisture causing seed decay, and what diseases those compounds will control, and then how best to apply them for their optimum performance. There's a different challenge every year. Last year we had the challenge of a wet spring, dry summer, and a wet fall. So we had lots of decay in the beginning, at the end of the season, and drought in the middle. We didn't expect that. The year before, we had a flood, so we lost potatoes. So some of the weather-related things are unpredictable. The year before that, we had some late blight. So it's really hard to figure out what the biggest challenge is going to be, but I think the biggest challenge is getting a good stand of potatoes to start with. So buying good seed, planting them in the ground, getting a complete emergence, so you've got those plants started well so they can continue to grow all during the growing season. You know, I think some of the biggest challenges are going to be dealing with early dying, which is caused by verticillium. One of the chemicals that's used to control that is being frowned upon by our Environmental Protection Agency, and they're severely restricting the use of it, and it's a pretty serious yield-limiting disease. We hope that late blight doesn't show up again this year, that we have a wet year, and that we have a late blight outbreak, which is really difficult to stop sometimes. I think one of the biggest challenges that is coming down the road for us is going to be a disease called powdery scab. Powdery scab is a new disease. It's an emerging disease that affects this part of the world as well as the lower part of the valley. So I think those are going to be some challenges we have to look at. People try to look at seed treatments as a to turn poor seed into good seed, to perform a miracle, to take bad seed and make it good, or to rescue otherwise poor seed that's got a lot of disease or a lot of that's been beat up or rotted or has some other problems. And I think it's important that there's a whole list of factors that affect how seed performs, and chemical control or seed treatment is only one of them. So you need to consider all these other factors like variety and handling and temperature control and wound healing and physiological age and so on. All has to be part of an integrated management plan in order to get successful emergence and stand and quality of your field of potatoes.